Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Dan's Haunted Cottage. It's been a while, isn't it? It's probably been about, it's been about a few days anyway. But I did have the best intentions this last weekend of going and doing a ghost hunt, but unfortunately, the ghost hunt did go ahead, but without me. Alas, I was not very well, and I haven't been very well for about. I've had this bug, and it keeps. I think we're playing bug tennis in the house at the moment. It goes from one member of the family to the next, and it's come round again. But it's left the others, but it's going now, so that's good. So hopefully, normal service should be resumed very very soon. So, in the absence of doing an investigation this previous weekend just gone, and I apologise to you guys for that because I had best intentions, but sadly they fell flat due to this bug. I thought in the absence I'd give a tale that involves a ghost hunter and involves a very, very young Dan. When I was very, very young, I'm going back many, many years now, prior to me doing ghost hunting, I mean, I've always been an avid follower of ghost hunting, not programs, but books and what have you, and I've got a whole library dedicated to the subject, as you probably would have guessed anyway. I've got somewhere in the region of probably now about 500 odd books. So, yeah, I've got an awful lot of paranormal books. Some of them are very rare, very expensive, and just can't get hold of them anymore. So they're my pride and joy, as it were. And I have a couple of books and letters from Mr. Price himself. You know, that avid ghost hunter of Borley Rectory, that well-known ghost hunter of the 30s and 40s. Celebrity ghost hunter, I think you would have called him one time. It probably was the first celebrity ghost hunter, actually. But anyway, let's move away from that for a little bit. As interested as I am in that, and I could keep you all day talking about Mr. Price, Mr. Harry Price, I shall move away from that subject before we get too drawn down into the mud of it. Right, so this is going back many, many years, many, 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 many years, and I was just a lad, and I knew quite a bit about ghost hunting even prior to doing it, about the people involved in it and who was what and what was who. And because, as I say, ever since I was a child, I've been an avid follower of the paranormal as a subject. And anyway, there was I worked for this company. It was probably one of my first jobs, and it was just a transport company, but they used to have all different. I suppose there was different arms to this company. There was one that dealt with the transport abroad, one that dealt with stuff that was international and also national. And I was on the national side. In fact, I was on probably the national side, I would say. And I dealt with stuff that was pretty local to where we were. Now, we were called out one day, or we were given a job sheet, and the job sheet said that we were to meet at this house at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We couldn't get there before that, and we certainly couldn't get there after that. And if we ran late, then to just scrub around it and not turn up, which was a very unusual thing in itself. We're used to people giving us dedicated times, but there seemed to be the emphasis on if you can't do it at this time, then you will need to not do it at all that day, come back another day. And it was one of those things that was unusual, but, you know, many unusual things in this world. So anyway, we turned up at this house and we were met by this chap with a very, very posh car at the time. I believe it was a Daimler or a Jaguar, and this guy was absolutely dressed to the nines. Very, very smart man, middle-aged man. The subject of the job was to take some furniture from the property and move it outside, and then move some furniture that was in situ in the property to in situ again, so just move it around the property. Now, we went into this property and we met this guy, and it was something very, I don't know, something very unique, odd maybe about this chap. And but he was a nice man, very nice, personable guy. And he shook our hands and he said, "Right, okay, we're going to the house now. Stay with me until I've shown you where the furniture is. And then what I would like you to do is I would like you to, as we go in, there's a room on the left-hand side. Whatever you do not enter that room. Don't go into that room." Now, there was me and there was another young chap. And of course, it kind of piqued our interest as to what was in this room. But let me draw a picture of the house first of all. It was a great big Victorian property, probably early Victorian, I would say. And it had a balcony and it had 3 stories. And on the bottom floor, well, as you walked in, there was a great big oak floor. It was highly polished. And there was this almost baronial staircase, this great big dark oak staircase that went, as you went in, it went around and swept up the stairs. You could get 3 people abreast on it quite easily. It was that wide a staircase, great big steps, and it was in a row of houses. There was probably, I don't know, several houses that consisted of this row, and as we walked in, all the curtains were pulled. There was these big, long, luxurious velvet curtains, I remember. And as we walked in, and he said, "Right, we're going to go up the stairs, so that room over there on the left, please don't go anywhere near it. Do not enter it at all." So we followed him up the stairs, but I noticed as we went up the stairs, there was rosary beads, and they were sort of turned around. There was crucifixes that were spun kind of upside down. There was religious artifacts that had been like smashed, damaged certainly. And as soon as I got into the house and we went upstairs, I knew exactly what was going on. I didn't know exactly, but I knew that this was a haunted property, and being such, I was very excited, very very excited. So we went upstairs and he pointed out a few things, and I said to him just off the cuff, "Can you answer me a question, please, sir?" And he said, "Yes, if I can answer it, I will. What's your question?" And I said, "Is this property haunted?" And he gave me this knowing smile. It just crept across his face, and he asked, what makes you say that?" And I said, "Well, it seems to be well kept, apart from a few religious artifacts that have been damaged around it. And some of the furniture seems to be in quite odd places as to a normal house. And it doesn't look like anybody lives here. And you gave us a specific time to get here. And if we were outside that time, then we couldn't attend till the next day at that time again." Which struck me as a very unusual and specific request. So he smiled and he said, "Well, maybe it's haunted." Okay, fair enough. But he looked at me and he laughed. And we moved a few things about, and he left us for 10, 20 minutes, and he was popping down the road for something. And of course, my friend made his way into the room that shouldn't be entered. So he's opened the door, and he's called me in. He said, "What? This is very odd, Dan. This is very, very odd. Come and have a look at this." I said, "Well, you shouldn't be in there. What are you doing in there? The man specifically told us not to go in there." He said, "I know, but I just felt like maybe I should." So anyway, the door was open. What more damage could be done? So I went into the room, and it was very weird. Over in one corner of the room was a picture of Christ. It was on the wall. It was over in the corner of the room, picture of Christ. And directly opposite it was a camera. Now it was set up as a trip camera. And it was directly facing this, maybe slightly off, but it was more or less facing this picture of Jesus in this corner. And it was all set up. There was powder down. There was all sorts of objet d'art that only a ghost hunter would use. So he came back, and my friend had told him that a cat had run in, and we had to go in. It had gone into that room. It had knocked the door. It opened. It had gone through. I don't know how he made such a fuss. And this guy went, "Oh, did it? The cat ran in, did it? And that's why you went in there." He knew, but he was smiling at the same time. And I said to him, come on, sir. This house is haunted, isn't it? It's definitely haunted because you've got a camera set up in that room, and it's facing a certain picture. It's facing a certain corner of the room, and this house has got haunted written all over it. It's got paranormal activity all over it. And he said, "Well, I'll tell you, even that camera is because we have a lot of break-ins around here, and that camera is set up that if anybody does break in, it automatically flashes, takes a photo, and then we got evidence of whoever's broken in." To which I said, "But that makes no sense. Why doesn't it?" He said. I said, "Well, because if somebody broke in and that camera flashed, they'd just take the camera. It's a very expensive camera. They'd just take it, wouldn't they?" And he said, "Right, come outside and I'll tell you." So we went outside, we had a cup of tea. He'd made us a cup of tea. British workmen always love a great cup of tea. And we sat outside on what was the tailboard of the lorry, and he came over and he divulged this story. And he said that where we were, the house that we were in, has got activity in it. But the house next door is the one that is inundated with activity. Several families have lived in that house, and several family members from each family have committed suicide in the adjacent property. The property that he was in, he said that it was his mother's. I don't know if I believe that or not. And that they were a sort of London Irish Catholic family. And that he was just monitoring it and seeing what activity transpired in there, because there was renowned to be active. The man was a ghost hunter, and I called him on it in the end, and he kind of reluctantly, but then he admitted to it. But I don't think he was just a ghost hunter. I think the man was a parapsychologist. So the man had studied parapsychology, sort of the unknown, be it paranormal, whatever, right the way across the unexplained, sort of esoteric. And he'd said that several family members from several families that had lived in the house next door over the course of possibly 180, 200 years at a push, had committed suicide in that property. And the last one had hanged themselves out the front window by where the balcony was. I later spoke to a friend, or a chap, kind of a friend I guess, who was a professor at Cambridge University, and I was telling him about the property and the way that things were in there. And this professor also used to study the occult, and he told me that he felt that the way I described it, the way that the artifacts were, that it was some kind of, it seems like a practice of some dark religion, whether it be voodoo or whatever. I think he said it was a sort of a wing of voodooism or voodoo. So I'm not too sure about that. But I explained what was going on, and I explained how the house was laid out and what the religious artifacts were, and how the crucifixes were turned upside down and smashed, and different religious artifacts were damaged, and that was the conclusion that he came up with. Now, I don't know about that, but there was something going on in that property, and that property definitely had some ominous feelings above it. There was a dark cloud that was over it, and certainly the next door one. Although the next one, the one that was next door, seemed quite benign compared to the one that he told us was his mother's property, which makes me wonder, was he telling us the story of the property that we were in rather than the property that was next door? I don't know why he would do that, but people are strange. They just want to throw you off the scent, even if it's a little bit. So that's it, really. That's the story of when I was a young whippersnapper. And yeah, my first, I guess, real taste of meeting a real life, bona fide, professional parapsychologist, ghost hunter. So, yeah. And let's not mix the two things up. They're two different things. A parapsychologist is somebody who studies and does an awful lot of studying to get to the point of where they are classed as a parapsychologist. I think it's like 3 degrees they need to take. It's the whatever the first one is, Bachelor of Science, Master of Science, and then they need to go to their doctorate. So the professor, I guess. There aren't that many in the world, actually. I don't think there's not an abundance of them. But yeah, parapsychologists really dedicate their whole existence to the study of the paranormal, the occult. Whereas ghost hunters, a lot of them do dedicate their lives to it, but a lot of them are hobbyists and certainly don't jump through the rings, the educational requirements that are warranted by parapsychologists. And if you ever read books on the paranormal, rather than reading people's personal accounts, I would always suggest that you pick up books by parapsychologists, or old school ghost hunters. As I say, people like Harry Price, Peter Underwood, and parapsychologists as well, because that's where you're going to get the thing with parapsychology is you'll get conflicting. They'll give you reasons as to why something is haunted or why people's perception of something is haunted, and they'll also cut through all the dross and tell you the truth and give you other reasons for people's perspective of things being haunted. So yeah, pick up parapsychologist books. They're a great read and worth having, as opposed to these personal accounts, because I don't know. The thing with personal accounts is they're very, you don't know the person who's written it. You don't know their experiences. You don't know whether they're prone to flights of fancy. Whereas with parapsychologists and the old school ghost hunters, you'll be getting the proper real deal. So that's it, really, guys. I've banged on long enough, longer than I anticipated, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Have a great and safe and happy week, and I will speak to you at some point. Hopefully, I won't keep it going as long as I did last time, and I will be back on here within days. Take it easy, guys. Thanks now. Bye.